Hi, I'm Flavia.
And I'm Andy, and we are The Firm, your real estate concierge.
We help our clients buy and sell real estate in Wisconsin.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to our series of videos, How to Write That Winning Offer. Today, Flavia, we have a really special guest, right? We're going to talk about radon, and this is something that Flavia always pushed really hard for me to understand because I didn't always understand how important radon was. But today we have a very special guest, Brian Thompson. He is the Executive Vice President of Lifetime Radon Solutions, a company that's been around for 25 years. He has a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience with radon mitigation, and we really love him because of his educational style. Welcome to our little video here, Brian.
Awesome.
Well,
Hey, thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, Flavia. I really appreciate you guys bringing me in on this call.
so Brian, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think everybody wants to know what radon is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question, Flavia. You know, it's a question we get all the time. So radon is a tasteless, colorless, odorless gas. So really the only way you can know, what the levels are in your home is by testing. It is the number one cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and it's the number two cause of lung cancer overall. So the EPA estimates that about 21 to 22,000 people pass away every year from radon related lung cancer. So radon, is a very serious thing. But one thing to keep in mind is that radon is not like carbon monoxide, for example. There's a lot of misconceptions about that where like, hey, if radon's in your house, it's this thing that we need to address, immediately because somebody could literally die within hours. Radon, the evidence, of radon is long-term exposure, with elevated levels of radon gas, is, going to increase your risk of getting lung cancer and is the number one, amount of radiation that we're going to be exposed to as humans here on Earth. So, you know, that's why radon is so important. But the thing that you need to understand about radon is that everybody's house has it. There isn't a house out there that doesn't have radon. So let that, sink in. Everyone's house has it. It's only a matter of how high the levels are, whether they're high or whether they're low. So the test is really just a determination of, are the levels elevated and kind of in that danger zone that the EPA has, laid out for us, or, is it low below that, and something that you're, happy with, I guess, mitigating and dealing with that risk.
So, Brian, two quick questions are really related. Number one is what is considered a safe level of radon,
Yeah,
and then what are the ways that we can test for radon?
Yeah, that's an awesome question too. So the EPA is very upfront about the fact that there is no known safe level of radon, but they will say that the action level is 4.0. So anything 4.0 or above, they're going to say, you should consider putting a radon mitigation system in your house. Anything 3.9 or below for, real estate purposes, things like that, they would say that that would be like a pass for the radon.
Okay.
Now, the World Health Organization, they use a different unit of measurement in becquerels primarily. It's kind of like metric, inches versus, the same kind of concept. And so basically, in the World Health Organization, their action level is 2.7. So that's always kind of thrown people for a whirl. So the EPA has kind of gone, a little bit. They still have the EPA action level 4.0, and that's still what you're going to use in real estate. But a lot of people that we're finding now, like between 2 and 4, they're considering putting the system in, because of what other countries are doing and because of that information. And then the EPA has kind of said, hey, look, if you're between 2 and 4, it's something you might want to consider as well, even though 4.0 is still the action level. So, bringing that full circle, there isn't exactly, a safe level of radon, but certainly anything above 4, you're really increasing that risk substantially.
Okay.
And if we have a transaction and radon is 4.0, what do you do to mitigate that radon?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can install a system called a radon mitigation system. And really what we're doing is creating a negative pressure underneath the floor in the house. And then we're drawing the radon out. It's a pretty simple process in most properties. Every house is a little bit different, but I would say for 90% of properties, it's a very simple process, particularly here in southeastern Wisconsin, where we have some pumps and a drainage system underneath the house. But some homes can pose a little bit of a problem, but I would say on average, you're looking at, somewhere between $800 and $1,200 to repair it. And typically it's not, an overly exhausting process. It's not like you got to move out of the house while
No
we
pun
do
intended.
it. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty quick. We get in, we get out. And definitely radon's one of those things. While it is a serious issue, it definitely should not be something that should deter a buyer from purchasing a home or, ruin a real estate transaction in any way, shape, or form, because it is very easily solvable issue. It's really just kind of adjusting the pressures in the home.
You really answered sort of what my next question was, because I was sort of turning over in my mind if the average person who didn't know anything about radon or never had a radon mitigation installed, and you were describing what it was, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, a lot of people are thinking, God, that sounds like it's really expensive. But it's, to think about that, first of all, if you buy a house and you don't know if the radon is high, you don't know for sure that you will need any mitigation installed. But even if you do, it's going to be, in that price range, $1,000 to $1,500 or less or whatever. Really puts it in perspective so that we don't, overreact to the idea. And Flavia, I think just from the real estate standpoint, people are spending a lot more time in their basements, right?
Yes.
Right.
Because
Especially with home offices and people working from home, or you spend in the family, you want to create like a bedroom in the basement or a rec room. So it's very big now.
and that's the predominant. So Brian, I guess I should ask you this question. Because when we test for radon, where do they just test the basement? And if you have high radon in your basement, does that mean that the levels would be high throughout the whole house, or
Good
is it
question.
always in the basement? Can just explain a little bit more about, the impact that it might have on the whole house?
Yeah, definitely. You guys are bringing a lot of great questions to the table here, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I would say if you're considering selling your house or you're in the real estate, process, you definitely want to test the lowest occupiable or potentially occupiable space. So, you're going to want to test that basement area, because even if you don't use it, as you guys mentioned, more and more people now are utilizing the basement. So maybe the new buyer is going to come in and their plans are to, redo the basement. And so the home inspector or whoever is, tasked with testing is most likely going to test that lowest livable or potentially livable space. Now, I want to make sure that, I explain that a little bit, because some houses have like these crazy crawl spaces, or they have these basements that really just aren't livable spaces. It's kind of a tricky one there. And I usually typically tell people, let's put a test down in that area and then put one above it as well, to get an indication of, is there a problem, on that first floor. But to, answer your question for the sake of, simplicity here, if you're living in your house and you don't utilize your basement a lot and you're not in a real estate transaction, it's not a bad idea to set a radon test in the spaces that you guys spend the most time, even if that's on the first floor, like in a family room or something like that, or a great room. But if you're in a real estate transaction and, or you're considering selling your house, you absolutely want to test in the basement, because that's most likely where the test is going to occur. And that'll give you the best indication of what to expect during that real estate process if you're trying to determine whether or not radon is going to be an issue. But typically radon levels are going to be the highest in the basement, and then each floor, going up from there, they tend to get a little bit lower. But I want to make sure that I explain that, that's not always the case. Every house is different. And I've seen it where it's really high on the second or third floor for whatever reason. And a lot of that can have to do with like the HVAC and, is it pulling air from the basement and then blowing that up into that area? So, there's a lot of determining factors. And the only sure way to know is to test. And I know, you guys, had asked me a little bit earlier, and I didn't answer this question, so I might as well answer it now. The best way to test is to have, a professional like myself or somebody come out to your home and perform a test for you, because we can explain those results really easily. But the beautiful thing is that now there are so many different options for homeowners. Like, there's really not a reason to not test, even if like you're in a crazy in this crazy market like we're in right now, and your real estate agent is suggesting, hey, look, you may have to, waive some contingencies in order to get this home. Radon is one of those things where you could easily go back, whether it's during the process and you're just doing it for informational purposes, or you're doing it afterwards. You can do, at-home test kits, for around 20 to 25 bucks. There's different monitors that you can buy on like Amazon, that you can have all the time at your home, that, they're going to range anywhere from, 125 to 200 bucks. So they're not going to break your bank either. So there's a lot of different options for homeowners to be able to address this and figure out, if the radon levels are high, without bringing in a professional. And we're certainly here to answer any questions, even if you did a test on your own and had questions on what those results are.
And I really love, this is all great information. And, a lot of homeowners kind of feel, I'll say, disempowered when it comes to a lot of things in their house, because we're not specialists in radon, plumbing, electrical things. And these pointers and tips that you're giving right now, Brian, do put some of that power back in the hands of the homeowner to be able to at least, monitor or be aware of what's going on in their homes. And kind of try and take the focus back of why we're here, which is to help write a winning offer. And partially what we're trying to show is that, well, what is the tip today for writing a winning offer? If we can avoid having to put in a radon testing contingency into our offer, that will make it a little bit more appealing. And, although all of us here are understanding that the mitigation process is not terribly expensive or necessarily even that intrusive, an offer without that contingency will look a lot cleaner to a seller. And not every seller even understands the things that Brian has been talking about today. So we're hoping that we can sort of show that you're not, as a buyer, taking on too much risk by waiving that contingency, because you can handle it after the fact.
Just because you have to waive some of these things doesn't mean you shouldn't address them. And I think that's really important to drive home, not just with radon, but like with any other thing that you see in the house. There could be little things that you're just like, oh, that's not a big deal, I can fix that. But that doesn't mean putting it off down the road either. Like, you should probably, consider having a home inspector maybe come in, or somebody from that trade come in after the sale and check those things out, and just give you an idea of what you're dealing with, and with that home, so that you guys know, what the issues are with the home, and you can address that accordingly.
Brian, you really just kind of nailed right to the heart of what the whole purpose of a lot of our videos in this series are, which are, to write a winning offer. A big part of it is to waive a lot of your protections that you have. And we want people to understand where there's a lot of risk in doing that, and we want them to be careful about those. But we also want to give people comfort and understanding, sort of, if they waive that protection of that contingency, how in some cases it might not be too bad, and it might be worth it, because you're going to have to give something to get something. And writing an offer, you in a competitive market, you're going to give a little bit more than you would if there's a lot of buyers, and a lot of homes and not that many buyers. But right. In this case, it seems like some great information to help people feel comfortable maybe waiving that radon inspection contingency. But I love what you said. Just because you don't have that contingency in your offer, it's still important to have somebody follow up and really address, or at least get a good understanding of what the situation is in your house.
There you have it. Another great tip to write a winning offer.
I want to thank you one more time, Brian, for joining us. We're going to share your contact information at the end of the video here, because you've helped a lot of our clients, and we really appreciate all the great information today. And I know that there's people out there that can really benefit from what you guys have to offer.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and
Ciao.
stay positive. Ciao.
All right. Perfect.